I got it wrong. This is a response video to the series that I put forward regarding the astrology of the end of an age, in particular focusing on the astrology of 811 this year. So 811 came and went, and nothing of significance occurred. Some unusual things, but nothing necessarily related to either the symbolic sort of foreshadowing or what was sort of represented by the sky clock. So the interpretation was wrong. I was wrong. I got it wrong. I want to stress that this isn't a failure of astrology, yet a failure of my interpretation of the astrology. So in this video, I'm going to break down my response to 811, what I've learned from it moving forward, and what we can all take from it, and also responding to some of the comments and questions, and then moving us forward. And in this video, I will be looking at the astrology as we move towards the full moon in a week's time from now. And we sort of see a bit of a culmination of this period of time, especially the stress of the Pluto-Mars opposition. We had a Scorpio new moon. We're going to be moving into a Taurus new moon, exactly conjunct Uranus. So I've got a bit to say on that in relation to just the overall general energetics. First, I want to address what went wrong. I stand by my remarks in relation to the end of an age, the shifting of collective consciousness, and the rituals that are associated with 9/11 being air and fire, and we're yet to have the air, water and earth rituals. And I still believe that at some point we will move through some significant external event that will symbolize this aspect of the ritual as we move from the mutable cross and into the fixed cross. In relation to 811, I based my interpretation of the astrology on a preconceived idea based on all of the symbolism, the foreshadowing, the predictive programming. And that was the error. That was the error there. When we try to fit astrology into our preconceived idea, we can come at it from a very sort of one-eyed perspective. We can miss the bigger point of view, miss the objectivity that we need to have. And we're sort of trying to fit it into what we think may or may not occur. So if we come to why we were using the symbolism, then there probably has been misinterpretation of the symbolism. And that can either be that it was overemphasized, misinterpreted, or the actual messaging was sound, but the timing and the date is way off. So, who knows in relation to that? We definitely haven't considered confirmation bias, which comes into the picture. When you start looking for a red Mazda and that's the car you want, the next thing all you see on the road is red Mazdas everywhere. So symbolism can be a little bit like that. The other compartment to this is that it's 811, 811, 811. And I didn't see combined 8 and 11 symbolically sort of foreshadowed. I saw a lot of eights and a lot of 11s separately. Number eight's interesting. In the Kabbalah, eight sphere on the tree of life is the sphere of Mercury. You can see here with the tarot, Mercury has that infinity symbol, which is the eight on its side above his head. And eight being associated to Mercury, Mercury is known as the messenger of the gods. He rules over symbolism, communication. He's known as the magician or the trickster. And perhaps with this eight, there was some foul at play. Perhaps there was some, like it was almost like there was a net cast over this symbolism, and there was a bit of a sort of a trap laid from this sort of perspective of Mercury, which is the mind, and the mind can play tricks. So we've overemphasized and given too much weight to the symbolism. And then my error in judgment was to utilize that as a preconceived idea and try to sort of look at the astrology to see if it matched. And when I saw the alignments that were occurring and the location that were occurring around what they were representing, based on the symbolism, was like, okay, if the symbolism is accurate and the sky is sort of saying similar things, the likelihood of something occurring be high. So in all of that, something has to be wrong. And the astrology isn't wrong, but the emphasis that we placed upon it, my interpretation of it, that's where things can go wrong. And I'm happy to be wrong because being wrong or failing is an opportunity for growth. I'm a Virgo, so I look to any opportunity that I can refine my skill set and learn from my mistakes. It's about continual improvement. If I always got it right, I probably have an inflated ego and wouldn't have a need to sort of think that I would have to test my predictions, my skill set, my methods, my techniques. So this is an opportunity to sort of look at that and make, an assessment onto where I could change, what could I improve, where was I misguided, and what was the effect of that misguided perspective. Now, in point of view of a woman called Bernadette Brady, she wrote an amazing book called The Eagle and the Lark, Predictive Astrology. So the tale of the eagle and the lark is about a lark hitching a ride on top of an eagle to get to the height that it needs to be that it can sing. And the lark is a representation of our intuition, but the intuition can only be as good as the foundation that it sits upon. And if we want to get into a really heightened perspective, a very objective perspective, we need sound principles, sound methodology, and techniques that can get us to that point of view. So in this example, what I'd done was I built my eagle on my lark. So I'd already had my lark, this is what I think is going to happen. And then I built the eagle upon it. So the error here is that we need to first build the eagle free of judgment, free of intuition, free of anything, just a very objective look at things. And then once we've got a sound sort of understanding of the things, we can base our intuition on that. But because of the symbolism and the way in which it was being presented and what it sort of represented, it was more so like, well, here's what's potentially going to happen. Does it line up? And then we're using astrology to try and fit into that preconceived notion. And that's the error that we made, or that I've made at least. As I've stated in many videos over the last sort of little while, this is not the best use of astrology. The best use of astrology is a tool of self-actualization, self-knowledge. Along your path and your journey of awakening, stepping onto your spiritual path. So I know of no other tool that can help you understand yourself more so than astrology and your natal birth chart. I will continue my practice supporting hundreds of people every year. I have a 5-star Google rating with lots of positive feedback, and I know the profound effect that I am having on my clients in relation to their spiritual guidance. So in that side of things, I'll continue to do what I do. This was more a bit of a side project based on a lot of requests to look at this. So in relation to that, I think I've done the best that I could. And in retrospect, yeah, there are some changes to the way I'll approach this in the future. Will it stop me from putting videos out like this, or will it stop me from having an opinion or to sort of say it as I see it? No. And if I'm wrong, I'm okay, and I'll always admit, hey, I got it wrong. But occasionally, Trump assassination, you sort of land and you get it right. So I want to address some of the comments that I've received in relation to 811 on my videos on social media and the like. I think it's slightly delusional to think that any of our information put forth around this date had any impact whatsoever to sort of halt or stop this from occurring. I think that's extremely unlikely. We're talking a minuscule amount of people coming across this information, very, very, very minute in the collective side of things. So if something like this, major event was pre-planned, pre-orchestrated, us talking about it pre-event would have little to no bearing on the outcome whatsoever. So I think that's a little bit, misleading to think that, oh no, we may have stopped it because we brought attention to it. I think that's overemphasizing that our part to play in this. Just to give you a little personal behind the scenes into my little small YouTube channel, I've put 4 videos up on this particular topic, and they've got a very good response. But each video is about around an hour in length, and the average view time is about 17 minutes. So we're talking very, very, very small amount of people that are watching this, and even watching the entire amount, that could somehow have an effect on what may or may not occur. I think that's a little delusional to think so. For those of you that have been let down by my misjudgment and my misinterpretation, so much so that you felt the need to comment and also unfollow, I wish you all the best on your journey and your path ahead. For those of you that have been triggered and have lost all respect based on my flat earth comments from the previous video, I'll do just fine without your respect. I think something good that we can take from this is that for those of you that took this information somewhat seriously, you've most likely become a little bit more prepared with an awareness around what to do in the event of an unlikely, you know, terrorist attack or seismic event, or answered some of those questions with, like, what would we do if all of a sudden there was no power? What would we do if all of a sudden there was mass exodus out of a city? Do we have a plan in place? Maybe you've gotten some suppliers that are being a little bit helpful to sort of help you with, the likelihood of power going out, no communication, that sort of thing. And I think that's a good thing, especially in the climate that we're in. So in that sense, I think this has been positive for that, just to bring some awareness around shit. Well, what would I do if there was a major catastrophe? Am I prepared? I think it'd be post 9/11 COVID. I think it's a little naive. Put your head in the sand and think, oh, that won't happen. I think we're in a climate where all bets are off and anything's possible. As a side note as well, I've been putting up YouTube videos now for 5 years, and this series clocked me over the 100 YouTube videos. Out of every video I've ever put up, these last four videos have been the most popular. So it is very refreshing to know that there is a lot of freaky deaky weirdos out there just like me, and that you like this type of content and this perspective. Like I said earlier, I stand by my point of view at the end of the age. The rituals that are associated with that, the moving us off the mutable cross onto the fixed cross, and the shift in the consciousness that we're going to experience, especially as we are post-COVID and into this next 2 to 3 year period. There's also a heightened uptick for potential conflict. I know that Trump won the election, and the immediate response is like, it feels like, oh, there's been a de-escalation of things. So I'm a little bit dubious as to that. I think it may be a little calm before the storm type of thing. So, time will tell and we shall see. Now, at the risk of not wanting to flog a dead horse, I'm going to finish this video today with a little bit of a breakdown of the full moon that's coming up in a week's time, and just a big picture of the energetics in relation to this sort of time period. This has been a pretty intense period of time. Pluto-Mars opposition, we had a Scorpio new moon. There's a big full moon coming up. So I'm going to run through the interpretation here for the 17 to 20% of you that are left watching it. This is for you. As you've heard me state in previous videos, we have a culmination of energy around a full moon. A full moon is a release point. If we look at the full moon in sort of cyclical nature, we sort of look at the new moon as a seed and the full moon as the fruition of that seed. If the new moon was the conception, the full moon would be the pregnancy. If the new moon was the ovulation, the full moon is the menstruation. It's that sort of pump of the cosmic sort of heart, if you like. So we have this Scorpio new moon, whilst the two ruling planets are in battle with each other, Mars, Pluto opposition. On the Scorpio new moon, about a week or so ago, we had Mars in Cancer and Pluto in Capricorn, directly opposite each other, Mars in its debilitation. And we're coming into a Taurus full moon. So we'll have the sun and moon opposite each other, and we still have Pluto and Mars, the planets that rule Scorpio, in opposition to each other. The Taurus aspect of this is, with Scorpio and with Pluto in particular, we're dealing with some of our more deeper emotions, more of our deeper feelings. And, there is this tension between our personal desire, how we aggressively assert our energy, how we respond with anger, and Pluto, which is our unconscious and our unconscious soul sort of fears, insecurities, all the things we've avoided, you've kept in the dark, we've pushed to a place we don't want to, sort of bring to light. And this full moon, can sort of bring that tension into a culmination point. When the moon comes into fixed Earth, it sort of earths that energy. It brings it into physical material existence. Taurus is the most physical and most earthbound of all the signs. It's fixed Earth. So we're going to see a lot of this deeper emotional energy and this tension between these aspects of, power versus control versus assertion versus your will versus the will of the force of the unconscious. And we can see that sort of culminating and coming into Earth energy. Earth energy in the world is the actual environment and the physical material world. Earth energy from the human perspective is our body. So we're going to have a lot of this tension then release into the physical body. 4 or 5 videos ago with my video on when Mars attacks. And I said that the next 210 days were going to be very interesting and the world wouldn't look the same afterwards. Also made connection between Mars in Leo opposite Pluto and the potential for upticks in issues with hearts and strokes and blood and that sort of thing. So this full moon is going to see that coming into the physical body. Now, this full moon is conjunct the planet Uranus, and Uranus is a very disruptive force. It can create sudden awakenings, shifts in consciousness, epiphanies, ahas, downloads. It's almost like the lightning strikes, and the next thing, everything's shifted or changed as a result. So, Uranus in Taurus, we're going to get a disruption within this physical body or this physical world, and a release point, a culmination of this tension that's underlying. And just my remarks before with regards to Trump's victory, everyone I've spoken to said that seemed a little too easy. It seemed a little like uneventful, So in notion to that, if there was anything to play out energetically that could be disruptive, chaotic, or a little bit shocking, this full moon could be that period of time when things come to light and you have that Iranian sudden disruptive force that shifts things and changes things. This having Mars prominent on this full moon is interesting, being opposite Pluto but ruling the North Node. We've also got Venus quite prominent. She's out of bounds. So she's a little rogue. She's in Capricorn, the same sign as Pluto, ruled over by Saturn in Pisces. And she's on the bends between the nodes, right? So when a planet is square to the nodes, it's said to be on the bends. So it's a real sensitive point. And we've got that South Node past, North Node future. We've got South Node Libra, which is peace, North Node Aries, which is war, which is another thing that you've sort of seen, initially since this Trump situation was this de-escalation of tensions, especially geopolitically. So it's very interesting, So is this a culminating point and a flashpoint, or is this the realization of this? And like this really is a sustainable, peaceful path forward. It's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how these energetics play out and what they may represent for our experience here on this earth. Saturn, still it's turned direct now. So it's no longer retrograde. It has a more of a physical effect when it's direct. And it's sitting directly on the midpoint between Pluto and Eris. So activating the transformation through crisis and chaos. And you've got Saturn in Pisces sitting on that midpoint. It's quite a sensitive point. So we're going to shift quickly and check this in relation to the geo map. So the astrocartography and where the full moon is going to impact the Earth and as well as the Pluto-Mars opposition. Again, just for interest sakes, not to suggest that something is going to occur or not going to occur, but just so that we're aware, these are where the planetary energies align. So should something happen, we can say, oh, well, that's the tension being released with this, or that's the full moon, or so on and so forth. So the full moon is rising as the sun is setting, and that's running across sort of west of Western Australia, up through Indonesia, Thailand, and up through China as well. So that's going to be an area to watch, especially seismically, energetically. So we're dealing with fixed Earth here, but Uranus in the fixed Earth sign on a full moon with Pluto in Capricorn. My perspective on 811 was always around geological shifts and changes, seismic or volcanic, not necessarily terrorism. So if we come over to Australia, we see that same alignment of Mars setting as Pluto is rising around the time of the full moon, and it's running along the eastern seaboard of Australia. So if there were going to be any seismic activity, volcanic activity, unusual Earth shifts, I would sort of expect them across the full moon Uranus conjunction, which is sort of west of Western Australia in the Indian Ocean up through Indonesia, similar to place to where the 2004 earthquake took place. Banda Aceh is a top point of Indonesia there, and you've got Malaysia and Thailand, you've Vietnam, and right up through that area. And then when we come over to the east side of Australia, and occurring around this, so remember with any lunation, we've got an orb of influence. So you've got this period of time. So day before, day of, day after the actual full moon. And we've got the Mars Pluto sort of energies rising and setting, and doing so across that eastern seaboard between New Zealand and Australia. So, just be mindful. If you're along that east coast and you get a tsunami warning, or there's been an earthquake in Tonga, we had one a few years ago, and there was a tsunami warning on the Gold Coast. They shut the beaches. I went down to the beach to sort of go, what's going on? And they're like, oh yeah, there was a tsunami. Oh, there was a earthquake, I feel, in Tonga. And next thing there was a tsunami warning here. So we've had them before, and if anything has come from this last sort of 48-hour period, if you're a little bit more prepared with a bit of a plan, some emergency equipment, and like in the event that something was to happen, you're like, shit, I've already thought about this. You don't want to be caught unaware. You don't want to be caught off guard. And you don't want to be caught running and panicking like the masses surely would. Now, am I suggesting that's going to happen? No, and I think I was pretty clear with that in all of my videos, is that my suggestion wasn't that something was going to happen. If it may, then we can look to these connections or correlations as to sort of understand them a little deeper. And that gives us a little bit of forewarning, and forewarned is forearmed. And what you choose to do with that is your responsibility, as I illustrated in my last video. So now you'll see as well the point that I made in my previous video around be very mindful who you share this type of information with. If I could say anything about the way in which some people chose to broadcast this information pre-11, I'll say that that's something that's quite dangerous to do. And the reason for that is because this information isn't for everyone. That's the savior complex from the age of Pisces. Let me save you. I'll save you. So that's martyrdom, and the martyr always dies. So this isn't about saving anyone. This is about saving yourself and taking radical responsibility. So what you choose to do with this information is on you. No one can answer that question. Should I do this? What about this? What about that? You have to be so responsible, response-able, so that you know what to do with it. You know how to act and respond in your own best interests. One thing you should take from any of this process is that it's not about what happens. It's about how we choose to respond to what happens. That's the whole point. We don't, part of the mystery of this world and life is that we're not supposed to know every little thing and everything that's happening. Can you imagine knowing everything that's going to occur? You'd be living your life in constant anxiety of the next thing about to happen. So the mystery of life is that it's unfolding, and that there is this unconscious aspect to that, in the sense that we're not conscious of what it is. So the resilience to fortify self-assurance and your own personal resourcefulness is to realize it doesn't matter what happens. What matters is how you choose to respond to what happens. Certain situations, when there's potential uptick and there is a bit of instability, be prepared so that you're prepared for any situation. For me personally, I've used this last week to get more prepared. And my partner and I have answered a lot of questions in relation to what would we do? Where would we go? Have we got enough food? Have we thought about this? So to the extent that we need to be prepared for something to occur, I'm confident that I will be able to be in any situation, whether I'm in the heart of the storm or whether I'm safe miles away, I'll know what I need to do to respond. And that's the message I want to leave with you, is that do you know how you would respond? Are you able to take responsibility for how you choose to respond to your life? And this isn't about just what's may or may not be occurring in the wider world. This is your actual life. How you show up in your relationships and work, the energy you take into your connections in your community, your own health and well-being, how you choose to utilize your time and energy and what you choose to do with it. How responsible are you? And this is an opportunity to sort of step back and say, yeah. Now, these videos, like I've said from the beginning, this isn't the reason I do the work that I do. The reason I do the work that I do is because I genuinely care about helping people through their awakening journey. when you start to question the narrative and decondition, deprogramming, and challenge your belief system, and it can be a frightening, bloody world that you wake up into. And I'm here to say, you're not crazy. The world is. Having said that, few of you think I'm crazy. I'm okay with that. For the rest of you, welcome home. Peace out.